Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Authenticity, living in the present moment, mindfulness. I am sure you've heard these words many times before, and some people even laugh at this term mindfulness. In some ways, it is just so overused. And what on earth does it mean, and why should I live authentically, being the velveteen rabbit and being real? What is this about? If you're interested in any of this, I am so pleased to introduce my guest to you, Ora Nadrich, who is the author of Live True, a mindfulness guide to authenticity. Welcome, Ora.
Hi, Duffy. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So tell us, how come you wrote this book?
I wrote the book right after my sister Esther passed away, and for anybody who's read my first book, Says Who, How One Simple Question Can Change the Way You Think Forever, it really was also inspired by her. She was one of two of my older sisters, and she suffered from mental illness. And she really was, I call her my greatest teacher. I was profoundly affected by her illness, and years later, she passed away. It'll be, it's been 2 years this last June. And when she passed away, something really profoundly shifted in me. And I felt that her spirit, if you will, was guiding me to write this book. And for anybody who's lost a loved one and knows what that is about, that it puts everything into perspective, or at least it certainly did for me. And specific to the book Live True, it was that there was no time to waste. Do you know that life is so precious, and that the moments of our lives matter so much that, you know, if not now, when is our life going to matter so much that we're going to be fully present in the moments of our lives? And that's what inspired me. I was really grieving her passing, but even through the grief, I felt the real desire to share this with others. Do you know?
Yes, I can't imagine. I have two sisters. I can't imagine losing them. I'm so sorry. And it's wonderful. What was her name?
Esther.
Esther, yes, Esther. So it's wonderful that Esther is with you in spirit, and that she actually guided you, that you somehow felt channeled by her?
Yeah, do you know, I think you could say that, or inspired, or guided. Do you know, I felt that her presence, her spirit, certainly was what inspired me to move even through the grief, to write something that I poured my heart into, which was really about waking up, which is really about treasuring and valuing the moments of our lives and not waiting, whether it's the end of somebody that you love life or it's your life, you know, not to waste the moments because they are very precious.
Yes, so you at a very young age really could directly experience the finiteness of life. And, you know, in my life, especially when I was younger, I would use the term someday, you know, like my life was totally infinite and endless, and I had all the time in the world. And now I live my life in two ways, really, which is today is the last day of my life. You know, life is finite. and that I do have a sense of forever. You know, it's kind of strange to have both two different time frames, but I can appreciate the finiteness of life, and therefore each moment is so precious.
Absolutely.
So precious.
Yes. Very much so.
So because we know that we are mortal, and we want to make every moment count, and we know that these are phrases that people use, and yet I think being truly mindful and truly authentic are pretty tall orders in today's age.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
They definitely are. I mean, I think it's very exciting that mindfulness is come into the mainstream, and that it's being talked about and it's being written about, and it's on the cover of, you know, such popular magazines like Time and Newsweek, and it's really seeping into the zeitgeist, if you will. And that's great, you know, but that doesn't mean that everybody really understands what they're supposed to do with it. What does it really mean? And even if something is really very popular, it's the pop word that is being bandied around, doesn't mean that people really fully comprehend it. So I like to really bring people into the understanding of what it means and that it is available for them. Do you know? I think oftentimes there are these wonderful things that come up and everybody gets excited about them, but I think there are a lot of people that are a little timid or afraid or uncertain about it, you know? And I'm very inclusive, so I want to say, hey, this is something we can all be a part of. I mean, it sounds like a tall order, but I really recommend trying it, you know, in increments and trying a little bit each day and availing yourself to trying these new techniques and skill sets and seeing what that feels like, do you know? Seeing how you like it.
So excellent. So I like that, the idea of a little each, trying a little each day. So can you give us a little idea of a moment of truth, if you will, in a day?
Well, you know, I want to start with just, you know, offering up an explanation of mindfulness. And, you know, for anybody who doesn't really know exactly what it means that it's the process of bringing our attention to the present moment. It's the awareness of the moment of which you are in. And there are varying degrees of how present we are. You know, for some people, especially the times that we're in right now, where we're so distracted and we're on our devices far too much, we can be there but not fully. We can be present but not fully. So what I tried to do in Live True was to really bring the reader into practical ways in which you can, you know, really participate in this skill that, by the way, it's a quality that's inherent in all of us. I feel that mindfulness, even though it's got its origins in long ago Buddhism, it's a universal skill that everybody can be a part of. You don't have to be religious. You don't have to be spiritual. Mindfulness is a quality like kindness and compassion. You know, it's something that isn't, again, it's inherent in us, but we just need to help it along and develop it so that we can start to use it. So, with Says Who, I bring the reader into some practical daily applications. And one of them that I think is super helpful that I came upon, you know, a lot of this is my own experiences. So if I've tried it out, I'm a good guinea pig. Then I feel it's fair to say that I can share it with you, and you might get the same benefits that I do. And I have something called life gazing. And life gazing came to me. I'm here in Los Angeles, California. I don't know where you are.
New York.
Located. You're in New York, okay.
New York, yes.
Okay. So Los Angeles is a very busy city. We're in our cars a lot, as you New Yorkers are too. And I was at a red light. And red lights are really interesting because red lights force us to stop. We don't elect to stop. It forces us to stop.
Yes.
We don't have a choice. So it basically says, you know, stop. So there I was sitting at a red light, and I thought to myself, well, why don't I take this time while I'm sitting in the car to be very present, and be aware of what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to focus on the people that were crossing the street in front of me. And mindfulness, also the definition of mindfulness, one of the definitions is to be in the present moment with acceptance and non-judgment.
Ah.
So
now you're talking, yes.
And I decided to put it to the test. So I sat at the red light for however long a red light lasts, and I created a little exercise for myself, and that was, let me watch the people that are crossing in front of me and just observe them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I saw the woman that was crossing the street with her twins in a stroller, and then I saw the man who was running across the street with his cup of coffee and his briefcase. And then I saw a homeless person crossing the street. I saw a lot,
mm-hmm.
and I was able to observe a lot, and that's what mindfulness helps us do. It helps us be present. It helps us be aware of what we're observing or experiencing in the present moment. And when you start to put that into motion, you start to really see a lot. And I love the quote by Thoreau. It's not what we look at that matters. It's what we see.
Oh, yes. So true. And I love the example. Ora. It's such a everyday example that I can relate to beautifully, and I imagine our audience can. And instead of what I often do is, I'm late again, and now I have to stop at this stupid red light, and as you say, forced to stop. I don't want to, and
exactly,
yeah, and just versus looking
and we're grunting
yes.
and bemoaning. How long? I mean, I don't even know how long a red light lasts. Like what? Well, maybe less than a minute.
Some are 3 minutes. I've counted.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
We're so impatient and intolerant of even that.
Right. Exactly. So the woman with the stroller and the man hurrying with the briefcase, and just appreciating just for that moment what those lives are like, and utilizing, of course, all of our senses, and the seeing and the smelling and the not tasting in that moment, and hearing and all of that. Yes, that is a really great idea. Now, I wanted to just ask you, let's just suppose, because we look at Zen Buddhism, and when you chop wood, you chop wood. When you carry water, you carry water. That's all you do. And my mind is often running. We call that the monkey mind. Right. Yeah. So let's just suppose that you're going to a home, and it happens to be on a beautiful lake, and you're with people that you know, and so you can just say, well, I'm experiencing this day, this beautiful lake, being with people, and that's it. Or you can say, well, this one I don't like so much. That one I really, really admire. And by the way, I feel kind of self-conscious. My pants got a little tight because I overate on vacation last week. And so this idea of being in the present moment, don't we bring to the present moment our, what Carl Rogers would call stained glass window, the lens through which we see our world based upon our own experiences and values, etc.?
Absolutely we do. And the beauty of mindfulness is that it makes us aware of whatever we're bringing to that moment.
Okay.
That's what's, for me, the most powerful thing about practicing mindfulness is that, and it's you refine this and you get better at it, and I want people to be aware of that, even that this is a process. It's like strengthening a muscle, and you're really developing an awareness muscle, if you will, so that whatever I'm bringing to that moment, which is subject to change based on a lot of things, based on what you just said, somebody can trigger you. You can smell some fragrance. Somebody can be wearing a perfume that takes you back to childhood, takes you back to a memory, takes you back to identifying that in a person that you didn't care for. So that's going to alter how you're perceiving in that moment. And if it's in fact negative, or there's fear there, or there's judgment there, or there's annoyance or anger, whatever it is that you simply have an awareness of it. And what I like to say about that is, like, for me, if something comes up in a moment, it's like this inner awareness voice. I'm irritated right now. What's irritating me? What's taking me away from the beauty of watching the water flow in this river? I'm letting myself be taken out of something that's really lovely, that I can really enjoy, and I'm letting it disrupt the freedom of the moment for me. Do you know? And I'm not saying this is always an easy process, but what I love about it, Duffy, is that your awareness starts to get more and more, as I said, strengthened. Your awareness starts to get even, more developed, more expansive, higher. It just starts to really grow. And it's like, for me, it's like a camera lens. Do you know that you can kind of, put it into a narrow perspective, or you can constantly widen the lens. And I feel like that's what mindfulness does. It helps us widen the lens, and what we see becomes more. And our awareness helps us. I feel like mindfulness helps us in the moment. Like, oh, you're triggered, or oh, you're feeling this. How, can you let that go? Again, questioning, do you want this to disrupt this lovely moment, or this dinner, or this conversation, or this, you're somewhere maybe where you're with people and you don't want to let that put you in a bad mood. It helps us. It really helps us not go into reactivity and become more of the observer. And when we're in more of an acceptance mode, we are more tolerant. We are more able to handle what's going on rather than let it be disruptive.
Okay. And I'm thinking about the expression, leave the past in the past, and stay in present time and don't think about the past. And then I'm also thinking about, say, as an example, with your beloved sister gone. So you go into a place that you used to be with your sister, and now you're there, and she's not with you except spiritually, and you have feelings about that. So you do go into the past in present time. Yes. And you're still being mindful.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's stay with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel that, something like that is really helpful in that, let's say I get a memory of my sister, which is from the past, and maybe it makes me feel kind of nostalgic or maybe even melancholy, that it's not that I thwart it or I push it away or I stop it from happening. I allow for it with awareness. There are people that can have an emotion come up for them that's connected to their past, and it can really spoil their day, and it can really take them down this sort of negative rabbit hole. And I think if we're not careful of that, and we don't really sharpen our awareness of where we can go, you can take a deep dive into sadness that can turn into depression, that can turn into the difficulty to shake it off as readily. And I think, again, this is really helpful. This isn't about denying the emotions and about not allowing yourself to feel. We don't want to numb ourselves from feeling what we're feeling. But, you use my sister as an example. That's a really good example because, I can have waves that can come from out of the blue about her. And I can suddenly go, oh, and it might stir up some feelings for me that are there.
Yes.
And some maybe I'm lamenting some feelings still about what I wish I could have done for her. It might stir that up for me. having an awareness helps me put it into present time perspective, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes.
And I think this is where it becomes, again, where mindfulness is so helpful, because it puts us in a present moment awareness that we can put it in a proper perspective that's useful for us.
This is very, very good, Ora, because I think that people are confused about that. Okay, present moment, meaning I can't bring me with me. I can't bring my history, my historical perspective. I'm supposed to just see the trees and say, oh, that's a tree, and not thinking about, oh, a tree. I had a tree like that in my backyard growing up. Right. Okay. So we can have a historical perspective in present time.
Yep.
And you see, so many of my clients as a psychotherapist have learned so well how to avoid and deny and distract. And the idea of staying in their own body and with their own feelings is actually terrifying.
Right. I understand.
Yeah.
You know, I understand that, and I know that everybody has to go at their own pace and what's comfortable for them, and I totally respect that. You know, that's why I really encourage people to be kind to themselves and loving in the process of, heightening their awareness maybe about something that might stir up some feelings for them, and that go gently on yourself.
Oh,
do you know?
Yes.
And I say that even in Live True. I say, getting to know ourselves. I use this sort of metaphor, if you will, like taking a deep dive to the bottom of the sea of your psyche. And that you may find some wreckage there, or remnants of a sunken ship. These are just metaphors,
Yes.
But you will also find great treasures there as well. So I know it's painful. Somebody said to me with a very exasperated voice one day, they said, "Oh, Ora, it's so hard to be so self-aware." You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. It is hard. You're right. It's not always so easy to be that super vigilant about heightening your awareness of self. Do you know?
Yes.
And sometimes it could be a lot to spend time with, So you must go at your own pace. Go with what's comfortable for you.
Right.
That's key.
And raise your own consciousness gently, as you say, at your own pace.
Yes.
And, I just want to say that when we can feel those terrifying feelings, we can remember that we're not going to die from them. Even though we think we are, it can feel like we're going to be annihilated now. And someone rejects us or disapproves of us or doesn't love us back. And it can really feel like we're going to die. And just to remember that we are wired for connection, and if we were alone in the wilderness in primordial times, we would die. We would die because we would be alone, and we need our tribe. We need our tribe for protection.
Right.
So we are so wired for connection that we feel that way, but just to know that that is a feeling, and that there's an origin to it, and that in real time we're not going to die. We're going to be disappointed, sad, unhappy, but as you say, not to become depressed.
Right, to have the awareness, Duffy. I think what's so helpful about this is that it begins to help us be aware of when we are feeling different things. We have every right to feel what we're feeling. We just want to be mindful of where those feelings take us. And having the awareness of that is, for me, it's like it's allowing for that emotion to come up, and knowing that we have an awareness of that feeling, and to be able to have some very positive self-talk. Like, oh, I'm feeling, somebody said to me even the other day, I felt sad today. And I said, I asked, about what was it that made them sad. And we really talked about, they said, I wasn't depressed. I just felt this kind of wave of sadness come up. And I said, so you were aware of this feeling. You had an awareness of it. And they said, yeah, I was very aware of it. And having that awareness of it, what I try to tell people also, I love, again, that another quote by Greek philosopher Heraclitus, the only constant in life is change. And, we can have these fluctuation of emotions, and I think that, oftentimes when we feel something, we just think it's not going to end.
Right.
It's going to stay, and it's going to never change, and it's going to be permanent. And I think, where mindfulness really helps us is it helps us be aware of, again, I'm feeling this. It's okay to feel what I'm feeling. I might feel sad, and that doesn't mean I'm going to feel sad an hour from now, or tomorrow, or next Thursday. Do you know that it's subject to change? And giving ourselves that information is so helpful, and that's the mindful awareness of knowing that, yes, this is what I'm feeling now, in this moment, right now, and that could change.
Yes.
That might change. Do you know?
Absolutely. And this is why there's much higher rates of suicide among teens. Because unlike adults, we've been in the valley, and we know the pain, and we know we've gotten out of it. Whereas for teens, it could feel so brand new and forever. And they don't imagine they can ever get out of it.
Right.
They don't have the wider perspective that mature adults do.
Right.
So, Ora Nadrich, I just want to thank you so much. And Ora's book is Live True, a mindfulness guide to authenticity. And you are all in for a treat because Ora is coming back next week. And for part 2 of Live True. Thank you so much, Ora Nadrich.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.